You have a card with a $4,000 limit. In March, you put $1,100 on it. A flight, a vet bill, a new tire. You had the money the whole time. You were never worried. The bill arrives. You pay it in full, on the day it lands. No interest, no late fee, nothing owed to anybody. 9 days later, your banking app tells you your score fell 22 points. And the strange part is that you cannot find the mistake because you did not make one. So what is that number actually measuring if it is not whether you paid? Search this and you will get the same 3 answers everywhere. That you used too much of your limit, that you crossed 30%, that you paid too late. Hold on to that 30%. We are coming back to it, and it does not survive. Because none of those answers explain the thing that actually happened to you. You did pay. In full. Before the date printed on the bill. The money left your account while the score was falling. Those 2 things happened in the same week, and they had nothing to do with each other. That is not a paradox, and it is not a glitch. It is a scheduling problem, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It comes down to one date that nobody puts on the front of the statement. Think about the electricity meter on the outside of a building. Somebody reads it. Not continuously. Once, on one day. Your bill is built from that reading. Not from your average usage. From the number on the dial that morning. Run the dryer twice the night before the reading and the bill remembers it. Run it twice the night after, and as far as that bill is concerned, it never happened. Your credit report works the same way, and this is the part almost nobody is told. The bureaus are not watching your account. There is no live feed. Card issuers send them an update at the end of each billing cycle. That is the statement closing date. The day the bill is generated. Whatever you owed at that moment is the number that leaves the building. It gets written into your report, and it sits there until the next reading. Now look at where your payment sits on that calendar. The due date is usually around 25 days after the statement closes, so the reading is taken. And then, up to 3 weeks later, you pay, which means the report never saw the payment. It was not looking, it had already recorded the number and moved on. In your March, the meter was read while $1,100 was still sitting on the card. $1,100 against a $4,000 limit is about 28% of the line. That is the number that went into the file. Not zero. Not paid in full. And then you paid, and the file did not change, because nothing was scheduled to read it again for a month. This is the whole event. There is no second explanation underneath it. Your card was doing exactly what a card does. The reading was taken on a day chosen by the issuer's billing cycle, not by you. And the drop you saw was the file catching up with a moment that had already passed. Notice what that means about the word responsible. The score did not measure whether you handled the money well. You did. It measured one balance, on one morning, on a date you did not pick. That is the answer to the question we opened with, and it is genuinely all there is to it. The reason it feels unfair is that you were graded on a photograph of a moment you were already past. Now, how much of the score can one reading actually move? More than almost anyone expects. And this is where the number everyone repeats starts falling apart. A FICO score is built from 5 ingredients, and the shares are published. Payment history is the biggest at 35%. Whether you paid and whether you paid on time. Then amounts owed at 30%. Length of credit history, 15. New credit, 10. Credit mix, 10. Look at the second one again. 30%. Amounts owed is driven mostly by your utilization ratio, which is the balance divided by the limit. And that ratio comes from the reading. So very nearly a third of the score is set by one number captured once a month. Not your average balance. Not your behavior across 30 days. One reading. That is why the drop can be 20 points from a month where you did nothing wrong. It also explains something people find much more confusing. A score that recovers on its own, without anybody doing anything. Next month the meter is read again. A new number goes in. The old one stops being the current one. That is not forgiveness, and it is not a repair. It is just the next reading. Which brings us to the thing the whole internet says about this, in one voice. Keep your utilization under 30%. It is on every channel that covers this topic. It is stated as a rule. Cross 30 and you are penalized. Stay under and you are safe. It is repeated so consistently that it sounds like it came from the company that builds the score. It did not. FICO publishes guidance on its own website about this exact question, and it addresses the 30% rule directly. It says, and I am quoting, "Some financial experts recommend keeping your credit utilization ratio below 30%. However, the data does not support the implication that your credit score will dip once your utilization ratio crosses the 30% threshold." That is the company that makes the score, saying the threshold everybody teaches is not in the data. There is no cliff at 30. There is no safe side and no penalty box. It is not a line you cross. It is a dial, and it reads a little differently at every setting, which means the entire framing most people carry is wrong in a specific way. They think they are staying under a limit. They are not. There is no limit to be under. And it changes what your 22-point drop actually was. It was not a penalty for breaking a rule at 28%. It was just a higher reading than the month before, priced accordingly. So what does FICO actually publish once the invented rule is gone? Two things, and both are more modest than the folklore. Generally, it says, keeping it below 10%, along with consistently paying on time, can help build and maintain a good score. And separately, that a zero balance is not the top of the scale either. A zero can stop you reaching maximum points for that ingredient because a file with no activity has nothing to read, which is its own small strangeness. The dial does not reward an empty room. There is one more published number worth knowing, because it quietly corrects the folklore too. FICO has looked at the people scoring above 800. On average, they use about 7% of their available credit. Not 30, not 0. Around 7. And 96% of them pay their accounts on time, with an average account age of about 11 years. Which tells you what the top of the distribution actually looks like, rather than what a rule of thumb claims. So let us put the whole thing back together. Your score did not drop because you were careless, and not because you crossed a line. It dropped because a meter was read on a morning when the number happened to be high. The reading date belongs to the billing cycle. The payment date belongs to you. They are different days, and almost nothing in your banking app tells you that. That gap is where the confusion lives, and it is structural rather than personal. None of this is a reason to be afraid of the card. It is a reason to know what the number in the app is a measurement of. It is not a report card on the month you had. It is one reading, taken once, on somebody else's schedule. And a reading is a much smaller thing than a verdict. So the one thing worth carrying out of this is a question, not an instruction. Do you know which day of the month your card statement closes? Most people know their due date by heart and have never seen the other one. Both dates are printed on every statement, and only one of them is the one being read. If this made a number that has annoyed you for years finally makes sense, subscribe. That is the whole ask. And if you want the other video about a number that measures something different from what you assume, watch Why You Never Feel Rich Enough. The number your brain is actually measuring. It is the same shape of problem with your own head instead of a bureau.